Ambassador Kim Myra walked through the massive glass doors of the Galactic Command Station. Her hands shook slightly as she carried the black briefcase containing Earth's final message. The station was enormous, with walls that seemed to stretch forever upward, made of some kind of crystal that reflected light in rainbow patterns. 3 different types of aliens sat around a curved table. It looked like it was carved from a single piece of white stone. The Vorthok looked like giant lizards standing on 2 legs, their scales dark green, and their eyes glowing yellow. The Luminari were harder to look at directly because they were made of pure energy, shifting between blue and white light. Sectai representatives looked like huge insects with too many arms and clicking sounds coming from their mouths. Mira had been Earth's ambassador for 12 years. She had never seen them look at her with such cold hatred. Usually, they just ignored humans or treated them like annoying children. Today was different. Today, they had made their decision about Earth's future. Commander Zeltak of the Vorthok Empire spoke first. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks, grinding together. Human representative, we have grown tired of your species' constant warnings about ancient dangers that do not exist. For 30 years, you have claimed there are old machines in the outer regions of space that could threaten us. Our scientists have found nothing. Mira opened her briefcase and pulled out a small device that projected a holographic image into the air. It showed a map of the galaxy with dozens of red dots marking locations where Earth's long-range sensors had detected the dormant defense systems. Commander, our deep space monitoring stations have confirmed these readings multiple times. The architect civilization that built these networks disappeared 1 million years ago, but their automated defenses are still functional. They're just sleeping. The Lumini representative pulsed brighter for a moment, which Mira had learned meant they were annoyed. When they spoke, their voice sounded like wind chimes. Young species always fear what they do not understand. These phantom signals you claim to detect are simply background radiation from dead stars. The Sectai made their clicking noises, and the translator device on the table converted their sounds into words. Humans seek importance they do not possess. Your warnings are attempts to make primitive species seem valuable to galactic civilization. Mira felt her heart racing, but she kept her voice steady. We're not trying to seem important. We're trying to prevent a disaster. If your expansion fleets accidentally trigger these defense networks, they could activate across the entire galaxy. The architects built them to respond to any threat to their territory, and they don't distinguish between friend and enemy. Commander Zeltak stood up, his massive form casting a shadow over the table. Enough. The Galactic Council has reached its decision. Your solar system contains valuable resources that advanced civilizations can use properly. Humanity will be relocated to Kepler 4-4b, a world suitable for your primitive needs. The weight of his words hit Mira like a physical blow. They were talking about moving all of humanity off Earth, away from the sun that had warmed their ancestors for millions of years, away from the oceans, where life had first begun. You have 60 standard cycles to prepare for relocation. The Luminari added, their light flickering with what might have been satisfaction. Any resistance will be met with appropriate military response. The Sectai clicked rapidly, and the translator said, human weapons are inferior. Compliance is the only logical choice. Mira closed her briefcase slowly, her mind working quickly despite her fear. She had known this might happen. Earth's leaders had prepared for this possibility, though she had hoped it would never come to this point. I understand your decision, she said quietly. I'll return to Earth immediately to begin the relocation process. As she turned to leave, Commander Zeltak called after her. Do not attempt any foolish resistance, human. Your species has no allies in this galaxy, and your technology is centuries behind ours. Accept your fate with dignity. Mira nodded without turning around, and walked back through the crystal corridors toward the docking bay where her small ship waited. Other aliens moved past her, some curious about the human who looked so defeated, others ignoring her completely. Once, inside her ship, she sat in the pilot's seat and activated the secure communication system. Her fingers found a hidden panel behind the navigation console, revealing a quantum transmitter that the aliens didn't know existed. She entered a complex code that would send a message instantly across the galaxy, bypassing all normal communication channels. The message was simple: negotiations failed. Execute protocol, Phoenix. As her ship undocked from the station and began its journey back to Earth, Mira looked out at the stars. The aliens thought they had won, that humanity would simply accept defeat and abandon their homeworld. But they had no idea what Protocol Phoenix meant, or that Earth had been preparing for this day for 50 years. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were much more dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. 6 months after Ambassador Kim Mira's return to Earth, the alien armadas arrived at the edge of the solar system. Admiral Kang Do-yeon stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship, watching the massive enemy fleet through the main viewing screen. There were hundreds of ships, some as large as cities, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor that could withstand nuclear weapons. The Vorthok dreadnoughts looked like flying fortresses covered in weapon ports. The Luminari vessels were beautiful but deadly, made of crystallized energy that pulsed with power. The Sect-High ships moved in perfect formation, like a swarm of mechanical insects, each one bristling with missiles and beam weapons. Kang had been preparing for this moment his entire military career. He was 58 years old and had fought in 3 smaller conflicts, but nothing like this. The enemy had enough firepower to destroy Earth's civilization 10 times over. According to their own intelligence reports, humanity didn't stand a chance in a direct fight. That was exactly what Earth wanted them to think. "Sir, the alien fleet is requesting our surrender," reported Lieutenant Park Hyuna from the communications station. "They're offering safe passage to the colony world if we don't resist."
Tell them.
"We need time to consider their offer," Kang replied calmly, "and begin Operation Shepherd."
Oh.
On screens throughout the bridge, the human fleet began to move. Earth's ships were smaller and looked much less advanced than the alien vessels. Many of them appeared to be civilian cargo haulers that had been quickly armed with basic weapons. The formation looked chaotic and desperate, as if panicked commanders were trying to organize a defense they knew couldn't succeed. The alien commanders watched with satisfaction as the human ships scattered in apparent terror. Some fled toward Mars, others headed for the asteroid belt, and a few seemed to be running toward the outer planets in complete disorder. "Commander," Sheltak aboard the Vorthok flagship laughed, the sound like grinding metal, "that the humans are breaking. Part before we even fire a shot. This will be easier than expected." 3,000 kilometers away, hidden inside a crater on the far side of the moon, Dr. Park Sun-mi watched everything unfold on a wall of monitors. She had been Earth's head of strategic planning for 20 years, and every detail of this battle had been calculated months in advance. The scattered retreat wasn't panic. It was choreography. "Falcon Group is in position near Jupiter," reported one of her technicians. "Eagle Group has reached the asteroid belt. Hawk Group is approaching the outer system markers." Sunmi nodded, sipping her coffee as if she were watching a training exercise instead of what looked like humanity's defeat.
Excellent.
"The aliens are following the predicted pursuit patterns. Begin Phase 2.
Oh.
The alien fleet split into 3 main groups to chase the fleeing humans. The Vorthok ships, being the heaviest and most powerful, went after the largest group of human vessels, heading toward Jupiter. The fast Luminari cruisers pursued the ships that had fled to the asteroid belt. The Sect-High swarm followed the humans racing toward the edge of the solar system, Captain.
Out.
Lee Jinwoo commanded one of the fleeing human ships, a modified cargo vessel called the New Soul. His crew of 35 had trained for 2 years for this mission. The Sect-High fighters closed in behind them, firing warning shots. Lee calmly gave orders to his navigator. "Adjust course by 2 degrees starboard, reduce speed by 5%, make it look like we're having engine trouble." The Sect-High ships moved closer, exactly as Earth's psychologists had predicted they would. The insect-like aliens were naturally drawn to pursue wounded prey. They couldn't resist the chance to capture human vessels with minimal effort. What the aliens didn't know was that every human ship carried detailed maps of something they had dismissed as impossible, the ancient Sentinel network that Earth had been warning about for 30 years. While the galaxy's major powers had ignored or mocked these warnings, human scientists had spent decades studying the dormant defense system. The network had been built by a civilization called the Architects, who had vanished a million years ago. Their automated defense stations were hidden throughout the galaxy, camouflaged to look like asteroids or empty space. The Sentinels had been sleeping for thousands of centuries, waiting for the right signal to wake them up. Dr. Park Sunmi had discovered something remarkable during her research. The Architects hadn't just built a defense system, they had built one that could learn and adapt. All it needed was someone to teach it about modern threats and give it permission to act. All groups have reached their designated positions, reported her chief technician. The aliens are now within the outer perimeter zone. Sumi stood up and walked to a special console that had been built using technology reverse-engineered from Architect. Her hand hovered over a large red button that would change everything. "Sir, the Vorthok commander is demanding immediate surrender from all human vessels," came another report. "He's threatening to destroy any ship that doesn't comply within 10 minutes, Sunmi smiled coldly. The aliens thought they were herding defeated humans towards surrender. They had no idea that the humans were herding them into the biggest trap in galactic history. She pressed the button. Duh. The moment Dr. Park Sunmi pressed the activation button, space itself seemed to change around the alien fleets. What had appeared to be empty darkness suddenly filled with massive structures that materialized like ghosts becoming solid. The Sentinel network was waking up after sleeping for 1,000,000 years. Commander. Geltek of the Vorthok Empire stared in shock at his main screen as enormous cylindrical stations appeared all around his fleet. Each one was the size of a small moon, covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. They had been there all along, hidden by technology so advanced that even the most sensitive alien sensors couldn't detect them. How is this possible? He roared at his science officer. Our deep scan showed nothing but empty space. The science officer's claws clicked nervously on his control panel. Sir, these structures are using some kind of dimensional phasing technology. They exist in normal space, but were shifted slightly out of our detection range. Similar scenes played out across all three alien battle groups, luminary energy beings, who prided themselves on being able to see across multiple spectrums of light, found themselves surrounded by sentinel stations that had been invisible moments before. The sect hive mind, which shared information instantly between all ships, suddenly had thousands of voices screaming warnings at once. Captain, Li Jinwu watched from the bridge of his cargo ship as the ancient guardians came to life around them. Blue light pulsed along the geometric patterns covering each station, and the space between them filled with a soft humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Captain, we're receiving a transmission, reported his communications. Officer, her voice filled with awe. It's not coming from Earth. It's coming from the Sentinels themselves. The message appeared on their screen in perfect Korean text. Human vessels, you are recognized as authorized personnel. Maintain current positions while threat assessment is completed. Lee smiled grimly. For 50 years, Earth scientists had worked to crack the Architect language and establish communication with the dormant network. It finally succeeded just 5 years ago, but had kept it secret from the galactic powers. The Sentinels had been learning about modern civilization through Earth's databases, studying every ship design and weapon system the aliens had ever used aboard the Vorthok flagship. Panic was spreading through the crew as their sensors detected energy readings beyond anything in their experience. The Sentinel stations weren't just big, they were radiating power levels that should have been impossible to contain. Sir, multiple weapon systems are locking onto our ships, reported the tactical officer. Targeting beams are using principles our computers don't recognize. Commander Geltak tried to contact the other alien fleets, but found that all communications were being blocked by some kind of interference field. The Sentinels had isolated each group, preventing them from coordinating their response. The first attack came without warning. A beam of silver light shot out from the nearest Sentinel station and touched the hull of a Vorthok destroyer. The massive warship, which had armor capable of withstanding direct hits from fusion bombs, simply came apart like it was made of paper. The beam had somehow convinced the molecular bonds holding the ship together to just stop working. Impossible, Geltek shouted. Our armor is made from neutronium composite. Nothing can cut through it that easily. But the Sentinels were just getting started. All around the three alien fleets, the ancient weapons began to fire with terrifying precision. Each shot was different. Some ships were pulled apart by gravity beams. Others were frozen solid by weapons that drained all heat from their hulls. And still others simply vanished as if they had never existed. The Luminari tried to fight back, focusing their energy weapons on the nearest Sentinel station. Their most powerful beams, which could burn through planets, struck the ancient structure and were absorbed without leaving a mark. The station's geometric patterns glowed brighter for a moment, as if it was feeding on the attack. Dr. Park Sunmi watched the battle from her hidden command center, feeling no satisfaction in the destruction. This wasn't about revenge, it was about survival. The aliens had forced humanity into a corner, and now they were learning what happened when you cornered a species that had ancient allies. The Sentinels are adapting to each new weapon type in real time, reported one of her technicians. Every time the aliens try a different attack, the network updates its defenses and shares the information with all stations. The Sect High Swarm tried their favorite tactic of overwhelming enemies with numbers. Thousands of small fighter craft launched from their carriers, hoping to confuse the Sentinels with multiple targets. Instead, the ancient stations responded by creating a web of energy that connected all the fighters together, then sending a pulse through the network that disabled every ship simultaneously. Within 30 minutes, the three mighty alien fleets that had come to conquer Earth were reduced to scattered survivors hiding behind debris. The Sentinels had destroyed over half their ships while taking no damage themselves. The ancient Guardians weren't just defending. They were demonstrating why the Architects had once ruled the galaxy. Commander Geltek, his flagship heavily damaged and his crew terrified, finally understood the truth. The humans hadn't discovered the Sentinel network by accident. It'd been its caretakers all along, the only species patient enough to learn its language and wise enough to earn its trust. The galaxy's balance of power had just shifted forever. Commander Geltek sat in his damaged command chair, surrounded by the wreckage of what had once been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Emergency lights flickered across his bridge as his crew tried to repair systems that had been destroyed by weapons they couldn't understand. Through the cracked viewing screen, he could see the massive Sentinel station still glowing with ancient power. Watching and waiting, his communications officer, her scales pale with fear, looked up from her console. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's coming through on all channels, and the Sentinels are allowing it through their interference field." The main screen flickered to life, showing a simple room with white walls and a single desk. Behind the desk sat a middle-aged human woman wearing a dark blue uniform. She had kind eyes, but her expression was completely serious. This was President Choi Ming-gi, the leader of Earth's government. "Commanders of the alien fleets," she began, her voice calm and steady. "I am speaking to the survivors of your forces. First, let me make something clear. We did not want this battle to happen. For 30 years, we warned your governments about the Sentinel network. You chose not to listen." Geltek felt a chill run through his body. The human wasn't gloating or celebrating their victory. She sounded like a teacher explaining a lesson to students who had failed to study. "Your fleets came to our solar system to force us from our home," President Choi continued. "You believed your superior technology would make this easy. What you didn't understand is that humanity has spent 50 years learning from teachers far older and wiser than any of our civilizations." On other ships scattered throughout the debris field, similar scenes were playing out. Luminari energy beings dimmed with shame as they listened to the human leader's words. Hive minds clicked nervously as they shared their fear through their mental connections. Captain Lee Jinwoo, still aboard his cargo ship near the edge of the battle zone, watched the transmission with mixed feelings. He had lost friends in humanity's previous encounters with alien aggression. Part of him wanted to see the invaders suffer. But the larger part of him, the part that had studied Earth's new philosophy of galactic stewardship, hoped this moment would lead to something better. "The Sentinel network is now fully active," President Choi explained. "It has updated its databases with information about all modern galactic civilizations. Every ship design, every weapon system, every military tactic you have ever used, is, now known to the ancient Guardians. Dr. Park Sun-mi stood in her lunar command center, monitoring the reactions from the surviving alien ships. Her sensors showed elevated stress levels among all the crews. The aliens were beginning to understand the true scope of what had happened. However, the president continued, Earth does not seek conquest or revenge.
Ow.
The Sentinels have been programmed with new directives based on human values. They will protect any world or civilization that commits to peaceful coexistence. They will also respond to any act of aggression with appropriate force. Commander Geltek leaned forward in his chair. This wasn't the outcome he had expected. Usually, when one species defeated another in galactic warfare, the winners demanded tribute, territory, or complete surrender. The humans seemed to be offering something different. The surviving members of your fleets are free to return to your homeworlds, President Choi said, but you will carry with you a message for your governments.
Ow.
The age of galactic bullying is over. The Sentinel network is expanding beyond our solar system, establishing monitoring stations in strategic locations throughout the galaxy. The transmission showed a star map with hundreds of points of light spreading outward from Earth's location. The network wasn't just defending one system anymore, it was growing, learning, adapting to protect civilizations that chose cooperation over conquest. Any world that joins Earth's alliance for peaceful coexistence will receive Sentinel protection, the president explained. Any civilization that continues to threaten others will find themselves facing consequences they cannot imagine. A damaged Luminary cruiser, Captain Velshari, pulsed with confused colors. Her energy-based people had ruled through superior technology for thousands of years. The idea that a primitive species like humanity could suddenly become the galaxy's protector seemed impossible to accept. But the evidence floated all around them in the form of destroyed warships and ancient stations that hummed with power beyond their understanding. This is not a threat, President Choi continued. This is an opportunity. For the first time in galactic history, smaller civilizations don't have to fear being conquered by larger ones. The Sentinels don't care about the size of your military or the strength of your economy. They only care about whether you choose peace or war. Commander Geltek closed his eyes and thought about his own world. The Vorthok Empire had built its power by conquering weaker species. Their entire culture was based on the idea that strength gave them the right to rule others. Now they faced a choice: change everything they believed in, or face the consequences of defying an intelligence that could end their civilization with a thought. The transmission ended, leaving the alien survivors alone with their damaged ships and their shattered assumptions about how the galaxy worked. Earth had offered them mercy, but it came with a price. They had to learn to live in a universe where might no longer made right. The age of human leadership had begun. 1 year had passed since the battle that changed everything. Ambassador Kim Mira walked through the same crystal corridors of Galactic Command Station. But this time her experience was completely different. Alien delegates who had once looked at her with contempt now stood up respectfully when she entered rooms. Some even bowed slightly, a gesture of honor she had never received before. The great assembly hall looked the same, with its curved white table and rainbow-colored walls, but the atmosphere was entirely different. Where once the major powers had sat in positions of dominance, now representatives from dozens of smaller civilizations filled the chamber. The Kepler Mining Guild, the Rigel Trade Consortium, and the peaceful farmers of the Andorian Collective all had equal voices in galactic affairs. Commander Geltek was still there, but his proud posture had changed. The massive Vorthok warrior sat quietly at the table, his yellow eyes no longer burning with arrogance. Beside him, the Luminary representative pulsed with subdued colors. Instead of the bright, aggressive light they had shown before, even the Sectai had modified their behavior, their clicking sounds more respectful and less commanding. Ambassador Mira, Commander Geltek said as she took her seat, "The Vorthok Empire wishes to formally apply for membership in the Alliance for Peaceful Coexistence." Mira nodded calmly, though inside she felt amazed at how much had changed. "We'll review your application, Commander. However, membership requires more than just words. Your empire will need to release all conquered worlds and allow them to choose their own governments. The vortex scales rippled with what might have been embarrassment, we understand. Our war fleets are already withdrawing from 17 star systems. It will be difficult for my people to accept, but we have little choice. Through the station's massive windows, Mira could see the reason for this dramatic change. A sentinel monitoring station hung in space nearby, its geometric patterns glowing softly with ancient power. Similar stations had appeared throughout the galaxy over the past year, each one a reminder that the old rules no longer applied. Dr. Park Sunmi was back on Earth, but her work was far from finished. In her laboratory beneath the lunar surface, she studied streams of data coming from sentinel stations across the galaxy. The ancient network was not just protecting worlds, it was learning. It's growing, becoming something even more sophisticated than its original builders had intended. Director Park called her assistant, a young scientist named Kim Taeon. We're receiving new signals from the Outer Rim territories. It looks like more sentinel networks are activating. Sunmi smiled as she looked at the star charts showing new points of light appearing in distant sectors. The network was expanding far beyond what anyone had imagined possible. The architects had built not just one defense system, but dozens of them scattered throughout the galaxy, all connected by quantum communication that worked instantly across any distance. How many new stations have come online this week? She asked. 47, and they're still growing. The network seems to be awakening installations that have been dormant for millions of years. Some of them are in sectors we've never even explored. On a farming world called New Harvest, a family of colonists named the Lees looked up at their night sky and saw something their grandparents never could have imagined. A gentle blue glow marked the position of their local sentinel station, a guardian that watched over their crops and protected them from the raiders who had once threatened frontier worlds. 8-year-old Lee Sumin pointed at the glowing light and asked her father, "Will the Star Guardian always keep us safe?" Her father, Lee Jung-ho, smiled and lifted her onto his shoulders. "As long as we treat our neighbors with kindness and solve our problems with words instead of weapons, yes. The Guardians will always protect people who choose peace." Back on the Galactic Command Station, Ambassador Mira received an urgent message on her secure communicator. The transmission was from President Choi Min-ji on Earth, and the news was both exciting and slightly terrifying. "Mira, we've made contact with something incredible," the president's voice said through the encrypted channel. "The Sentinel Network has connected us with other civilizations that the architects worked with millions of years ago. They're not extinct. They were just waiting for someone worthy to reactivate the Guardians." Mira felt her heart race. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just awakened an ancient defense system, they had opened the door to an entire community of civilizations that had been hiding in the galaxy for eons, waiting for the right species to prove itself worthy of joining them. In the assembly hall, she looked around at the alien delegates, who were now working together to solve disputes through negotiation instead of warfare. Former enemies sat side by side, sharing resources and knowledge instead of fighting over territory. A small Andorian delegate, barely 4 feet tall with blue skin and gentle eyes, stood up to address the assembly. "The harvest festival approaches. On my world, we would like to invite representatives from all Alliance members to join us in celebrating our successful crop season. This will be the first time in our history that we don't have to fear raiders during our most vulnerable time." As applause filled the chamber, Mira realized that humanity had accomplished something remarkable. They hadn't conquered the galaxy, they had healed it. The ancient Guardians continued their silent watch, ensuring that this new age of cooperation would last for generations to come. The galaxy had finally learned to choose wisdom over strength.